Hi everyone, it's H from Aftermarket Arbitrage, your wholesale expert. And today we're going to go through how to find reliable wholesale suppliers for your Amazon FBA business. Now, this is something that so many people struggle with when they do wholesale, and it really stunts their growth. And it essentially leads them to thinking that Amazon FBA wholesale is saturated, okay? And as we go through this video and as I go through this whiteboard, you will realize just how unsaturated it is. Want to break down a couple of things here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to go through is what will not work, okay? And it's quite funny because what falls under what will not work is what most people are doing, and that's Googling for wholesalers, right? So let's say if you wanted to find a wholesaler in the health and beauty niche, what would most people do? They will go onto Google, they will type in health and beauty wholesale UK. Okay, now that's going to bring you up the same 20, 30 wholesalers again and again. Okay, let's say if I type in health and beauty wholesale UK, we're going to get a group of wholesalers that everyone else has access to, by the way. Any novice Amazon seller has access to. Let's say you want an automotive wholesaler, you go into Google, automotive wholesale UK. Again, we're going to get a set of wholesalers which are going to be very saturated, which are going to keep coming up. Now, what does that cause? That causes people to think that wholesale is very saturated because let's say these health and beauty wholesalers, for the sake of this example, you're going to open up accounts with these guys and nothing will be profitable. Okay, and if it is profitable, it will eventually tank within a month or two, just because of how easily accessible these wholesalers are. So what I want to do first is just get everyone watching this video to think. Okay, now what I want you to think about is, why do you do wholesale? Why are you looking to do wholesale? It's for longevity, isn't it? You want the longevity. You want consistent profits. You want to be able to scale your business. Okay, so now what does longevity mean? Longevity means, in this case, well, for this instance, every single listing that we want to jump on, we want to ensure that the data suggests longevity. So let's say we're looking at a keeper graph. We want to ensure that the data that we're looking at on these keeper graphs suggests longevity. However, if you are approaching finding wholesale suppliers like this, whereby you're going on Google and just doing a simple Google search, none of the products that you will find or suppliers that you will find will suggest longevity. Because anyone who started Amazon yesterday could literally just go onto Google, let's say they've come across your Dove listing, type in Dove Wholesale UK, and your listing's gone. Let's say you have a portfolio of 100 ASINs. And these 100 ASINs, they can easily be found by doing brand wholesale UK or category wholesale UK. Your business is in the bin, okay? You won't be able to have that longevity. So that's why I say, that most people start wholesale for the longevity, but then when we break down how they're actually running their business, and in this case, finding their suppliers, it doesn't suggest longevity. So you cannot jump on any listings which you find from suppliers which are easily accessible on Google. Why? Because there will be no longevity there. Okay, so what will not work? Going onto Google, typing in brand wholesale UK or category wholesale UK. Why is that? Because the longevity won't be there. Because anyone can access these suppliers, these products, storefront, store queue. It's literally just the same as OA, but with more risk essentially, because you're spending more money on more stock. So that's what will not work. So that's the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to finding wholesale suppliers. And they're not reliable if you're doing it that way. Why is that? Because, like I said, they're so easily accessible. And something else you've got to think about these ones which you're finding on Google. It's very difficult to develop relationships with them just because of how saturated they are, the amount they're getting bombarded on the phone as well. So now with that being said, so we now know we cannot be doing this because this goes against completely what we want to achieve, which is longevity. And approaching the business in this way, it's going to leave us jumping on listings which are going to tank. We're trying to work with the suppliers which are going to tank. So you might start wholesale today, trying this, and I promise you, in a year's time, you're going to be in the same position, probably with the same amount of capital as well. So what sorts of wholesalers do we actually want? Okay, so thinking about what I've just said, obviously we want wholesale suppliers which are hard to source. which people cannot storefront stalk. So people can't go on your listing. Let's say they find a Dove product for the sake of this example and type in Dove Wholesale UK, your supply is not going to come up. Okay? So now what I want everyone here watching this video to think of is very simple. I think I've said this in a previous video before perhaps, but for those of you that are new here or may have forgotten, I'm going to say it again. Do you think high street retailers, or how do you think, let's say, imagine now high street retailers, do you think the suppliers that they work with care about being on page 1 of Google, page 2 of Google, page 3 of Google? No, they don't care. They've been doing business for 20, 30 years. All their business has been brought about with in-person business relationships, shaking hands. These suppliers don't care about being on Google. So basic novice Amazon sellers can find them and ask, oh, can we place a test order of 2 units? No, they don't care about that. So we've got to think, how can we find these suppliers that we know are out there, but don't care about being on Google? Okay, these very same suppliers, which are hard to source because no one else can have access to them, or no one else can find them, sorry, using Google, because everyone's trying to use Google. So that will bring us suppliers which have years in the game. What does years in the game mean as well? If we've got a supplier which has been in the game for many years, these suppliers are going to have better relationships with their suppliers, with their manufacturers which they work with, which means they'll be able to pass us what? Better pricing as well. So we want suppliers years in the game, which are more difficult to find, which we can't be storefront stalked from, and also we can develop relationships with. Okay, develop relationships with these guys who have been in the game for many years, who have better relationships with their suppliers, so they can go back and negotiate with those guys as well when we go in and negotiate with them. And now these relationships that we obtain, or we are able to obtain with the types of suppliers that we want to work with, because it's very difficult to develop relationships with these suppliers. So the relationships that we want to obtain with these guys, how can we leverage that? That's by getting products at prices other people can't get, and also getting stock that other people can't get from these unsaturated suppliers that we find. For example, saying to your sales rep, hi, we noticed you stock quite a lot of Dove, however, there's this Dove line that we want. Are you able to order it in for us? Things like that. So we can negotiate or develop relationships with the suppliers that we actually want to work with and work on price point and stock availability and get stock in for us. And obviously these suppliers that other people won't be able to find will be less saturated, so they'll be unsaturated. So what does that mean for us? Unsaturated, other people won't be able to find them. We'll be able to develop relationships with them to get prices other people can't get, to get stock other people can't get, sustainable profits, and that longevity, which is why you actually started Amazon Wholesale in the first place. So these are the sorts of wholesalers that we want to be working with. Wholesalers whereby other people can't storefront stalk us, wholesalers that we can actually develop relationships with, wholesalers that other people can't find, wholesalers that we can actually leverage the fact that they're unsaturated and we can have the sustainability there. Okay, so wholesalers which have been in the game for many, many years as well. So we can actually work with them closely. Okay? So now, what's one of the 20 methods which I use and the people that I work with as well, that I show how to find suppliers that we want. So one very, very simple method of the 20 is going through trade shows in the UK, trade shows abroad. For example, let me give you guys something to think of now. Let's say you come across some Colgate stock, okay? Colgate stock which is made in, let's say, Poland, for example. Let's say we find a trade show in Poland. And at that trade show in Poland, we've got a distributor of Colgate. Okay, now what we've done here is instead of buying Colgate from a UK distributor, we've gone up in the supply chain and found a distributor in the country of manufacturing of that product. Now what happens every time a product goes down the supply chain, it increases in cost price, obviously because you've got companies adding on their margin, import costs, transportation costs, storage costs. So if we can go into Poland, find a Colgate distributor, for example, so we can use the trade show method, instead of just doing basic simple ones in the UK, let's find a trade show in Poland, find a Colgate distributor, and we might be able to find the exact same Colgate stock, which we see at a UK wholesaler, but at a Polish distributor, exact same stock at a cheaper price point, just because we've gone up in the supply chain. Okay, so that's what I mean by that. So we can use trade shows. Again, we can use many different trade shows in the UK, not just your basic spring fair, and autumn fair. There's so many in the UK which you can find and go through. So it's all good and well. You even going down to these trade shows as well. It's not just trade shows, you've got exhibitions as well. Trade shows, exhibitions, events that these companies are at. So it's just one of the 20, right? But yeah, it's all good and well. Let's say if I told you today, go to your next trade show. That's all good and well. Go to these trade shows, finding these suppliers. Trade shows which other people may not. You can come across unsaturated trade shows as well, to be fair, which you can use, not just your basic spring fair and autumn fair, and obviously unsaturated trade shows, lesser known trade shows, which means lesser known suppliers, which means more longevity in our listings and more sustainable profits. Okay? Because what's that going to bring us? Wholesalers that we can actually work with, we can actually develop relationships with, other people won't find, that'll bring us longevity. So that's what that'll bring us as well. But yeah, it's all good and well knowing, like it's all good and well me saying to you, yeah, go to trade shows. But it's like me, I can go to a trade show and you can go to a trade show. You can talk with 10 suppliers, but you may not get the accounts open. You may get an account open, but you may not get the pricing I'm going to get. Now, why is that? It's because it's all good and well you knowing to go to a trade show, but it's literally pointless. Like I get a lot of messages saying, look, I'm going through trade shows, I'm having no success. Or I'm going to trade shows, I'm having no success. But it's all good and well you knowing to go to a trade show, but all of that is pointless, completely pointless if you've got the wrong business setup, your ethos is not on point, your value proposition is not there, you have the wrong approach when you're going to work with these companies. Okay, that's all pointless. It's all good about me telling you go to trade shows or look through trade shows online if all of this is not in place, because you're going to go try and work with the supplier. You're not going to get that account open because they're going to laugh at you because you don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to present yourself. You don't know how to work with these companies. Or B, you're going to get an account open, but they're not going to take you seriously and never actually negotiate with you or work with you, because the way in which you approach them, you never had your fundamentals or your foundation set up correctly. Because a lot of people say to me, look, I go to trade shows, but I find no success there. And it's simple, because you lack these fundamentals. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to approach these companies. You're going in, you're saying you supply brick and mortar stores, or you're saying you're a cash and carry company, and then they'll offer you cash and carry products, and then you just be like, this don't work. Because you're lying, or most of the people out there are lying to these guys, but you just need to have all of this stuff on lock. Basically, you need to know how your business is set up, you need to know your ethos of your company, you need to have a value proposition in place, and you need to know how you're approaching these guys. So like I put there, you need to know how to actually work with these suppliers and offer them value. For example, on this channel, we've got a video where, or on the aftermarket channel, sorry, we've got a video where I go down to NEC, Spring Fair, talk to sales reps, talk to account reps, talk to suppliers at the trade show, and the amount of times they said to me, we can spot an Amazon seller a mile off, they don't know what they're doing, okay? But I'd have a conversation with them for about 10, 15, 20 minutes, and they are literally wanting to work with me, giving me their business card. Now, why is that? It's because I know exactly where and how we can offer these guys value. I present my business ethos in a way that suits that company or suits the suppliers that we want to work with. So I've got all of this. Well, my fundamentals and my foundation, are watertight. Essentially, I know exactly what my business does. I know exactly how I'm offering value to these guys. I'm confident in it, because obviously a lot of people, when they go into these trade shows and trying to work with these suppliers, they sound very unsure. You can tell they're lying. You can tell them they don't have a vast understanding of Amazon. They don't have no confidence in the business. Obviously, if you have no confidence, if you're scared, if you're shy about working with these suppliers, they're not going to want to work with you. You've got to understand, everyone watching this video, Amazon is a monster. It's the biggest UK online retail company, and you sell on that platform. You have so much value which you can offer these guys. You just got to understand how to do it. For example, I've had sales reps say to me, Amazon sellers are big business, because they are. I've had sales reps say to me, look, we don't normally work with Amazon sellers, but we want to work with you. You just got to have these fundamentals in place. Like I've said, it's still good about knowing how to find these reliable wholesale suppliers. I've shown you what will not work, what source of suppliers we want to work with, and one of the 20 methods I use to find the suppliers that we want to work with. But what's also very, very, very important It's all good about knowing how to find them, but you've got to know how to open up accounts with them and actually work with them, negotiate with them, and actually do business with them. A, start doing business with them, and B, maintain business with them as well. Because it's all good about getting an account open, but if you can't maintain that relationship, maintain the business, it's pointless. You're gonna have no longevity, which is why you start Wholesale. But yeah, I hope that provided everyone watching this video with a bit more information on what sorts of suppliers and wholesalers you want to be working with and how to find Amazon wholesale suppliers that you want to be working with to have a sustainable business which is there for the long term. Again, if you need any help with any of this, feel free to, in the description, there'll be a link where you can book a call to potentially work with me and see how I could help you grow and scale your Amazon wholesale business. But again, going back to this, just please remember, if you're doing this, please, I don't want you to waste any more time trying to Google wholesale suppliers because you're going to get nowhere. That's a huge mistake I see a lot of people make. For example, I've spoken to over 300 Amazon sellers, yeah? Amazon wholesale sellers specifically. And I ask them, first thing, what's the biggest struggle in your business? Saturation and listings tanking. So hang on a second, that should not be the biggest struggle because you stopped doing OA, you stopped doing RA because of that reason. Okay, so let's break this down. What's the biggest struggle in your business? Price tanking and saturation. Okay, how do you source? I go onto Google and I Google wholesalers. Well, there you go. That's your answer. You don't want to do that because that will bring you, or that will lead you to saturation. We've got to think outside the box. Think of methods to find suppliers that fit the molds of the sorts of suppliers that we want to work with. Because no one's going to find that Colgate distributor in Poland that you found at a trade show, Googling Colgate Wholesale UK, for example. But yeah, it doesn't have to be in Poland, by the way. There's UK trade shows are very unsaturated and hidden UK trade shows that you could use as well to find suppliers that simply won't come up on Google in the UK either. But yeah, hope that helped everyone. And like I've said before, I've got a lot more videos coming showing you how to actually do wholesale. So yeah, stay tuned for the next one.